Hello and welcome to Study with Sudhir, your digital classroom. I am TS Sudhir. We are going to be now looking at a rather huge and an important chapter, which is the industries in India, the mineral-based industries in India, which is part of the geography syllabus for ICSE class 10 students. We have already done the industries which are agro-based. So please do go and have a look at it, because these generally come as a combined set as far as the examinations are concerned. They come as a combined set of questions. 10-mark questions come from there. There's a lot of things which you need to remember in this particular chapter. So we are going to go about it in a rather slow, very meticulous manner, and I'll be doing it in 5 parts. So each video lesson will not be very bulky and it will also help you understand it better, because if you try to do a lot of what we call mugging up, rattafy karne ki koshish karenge, so you may actually forget it. But if we kind of go about it in a very logical manner, try to understand it within the geography of India, locate the places on the map, it will just become more easy for you to remember. That's how I have done it in the past with my daughter. Okay, so first we will look at the basis of the different kinds of industry, the way the industries are classified in India. That we'll do in part 1 of this chapter, industries in India, mineral based. So when we basically talk about manufacturing industries, what are we talking about? We are talking about goods being converted, raw material being converted into finished goods. Okay, basic definition, basic understanding. So manufacturing industries are engaged in converting raw materials into finished or manufactured goods. Basic definition. Okay, what do they do and why are they so important? In fact, wherever if you speak to any industrialist from any trade body, वो आपको बताएंगे कि manufacturing is really the backbone of the economy of any country. That's why it is so important. And whether you are talking about manufacturing of heavy goods, say iron, or textiles, you know of cities like Tirupur in Tamil Nadu, which is a major textile hub of India. There are cities in Gujarat which kind of specialize in diamonds. Then there is of course places like Mumbai where there are a whole lot of industries which are located. So different cities home to different kinds of manufacturing industries, and all of them the backbone of the Indian industry for the main reason that they actually provide for a lot of employment. Kafi sara rozgar they can actually assure you of. That is why the manufacturing industries are so very important. They play an important role in providing employment, not only directly in producing the manufactured goods, but also they also help in other fields like transport, banking and trade, and industrialization is really necessary in order to progress for a country. Basic, understandable. Now, manufacturing industries are always located in certain places geographically so that it's of advantage to them. For instance, when something like a Korean car company called Kia Motors wanted to come to Andhra Pradesh, they established it in Anantapur district, which is a back of beyond district. But what it helps, the proximity to Bangalore airport, the fact that water was arranged, the fact that power was made available to the plant. So in many senses it is there on the Hyderabad-Bangalore highway. So in a lot of locational factors also come into play. Why is that entire area south of Chennai in Tamil Nadu become a very important automobile hub? Because initially when a few companies come, what they do is to, especially if they are big companies, they will ensure that ancillary units are established around it. Ancillary as in, agar car manufacture karna ho, to car ke liye nuts and bolts, tires, windshield, different ancillary units are they all come up in the same place. So then a particular place develops as a particular hub to produce a certain kind of goods, manufactured goods. So that's how states develop certain areas as a hub to produce something. That's how it is done. So they are located at places where they have certain advantages so that the manufacturer is able to get the maximum returns on the capital invested. Jitna paisa lagaya ho, he can get the maximum returns, and that can happen only if he locates it at the most suitable, at the most ideal location. Okay. The chief factors for localization are availability of raw materials, very important, understandable, power, जिसका कि मैंने अभी जिक्र किया, labor, preferably cheap, and skilled labor. It should not be like, you get very cheap labor, but it does not know the skills to do the job. Or you get skilled labor, but it's very expensive. So it has to be a balance of cheap and skilled labor. Capital, obviously the money, and managerial skills, that you need to have the right kind of management so that you can lead the particular company in the right direction. Markets and transport, where the market to sell the finished goods is, and whether you have the transport to be able to do so. For instance, and I'll keep giving you a lot of examples from my own experience. For instance, the entire iron ore mining industry was on the Karnataka side, a bit on the Andhra side, but more on the Karnataka side, especially around Ballari. Okay. Now Ballari, wahan pe they would do the mining, and then it would be transported cutting across Andhra Pradesh to go to the ports on the Andhra Pradesh coast. So you need to know, okay, which is the nearest coast for me in order to be able to do business in a more profitable manner, so that it gets kind of foreign exchange for the country, if you have to import it, if you have to export it, and whether you are also able to make enough revenue generation for your own private company or public limited company, as the case may be. The cost of land, construction, machinery, availability of water, climatic, economic and political factors, financial and credit facilities are also taken into account. So these are all different factors. Please note them down, which go into establishing a particular industry in a particular area. Okay. Footloose industries. Now there is another kind of industries which are called the footloose industries, are those in which no particular locational factor is predominant. Now the raw materials of these industries are generally available in all the regions, while the markets for their finished goods are scattered everywhere. Now most of them are consumer goods like cosmetics, toys, soaps, etc. For things where the raw material, it's not like, only in that particular place you will get the raw material. Like mining, for instance, you get the quality iron ore only in and around Ballari district. Okay, you will not get it in any other part of the country, that quality of iron ore. So, but in this case of Footloose industries, that kind of raw material you can get it anywhere. So it does not matter where you establish that particular industry. And so many people, like for soaps, cosmetics, etc., you invite the industry to set up space there, the government of the day, so that employment can be generated for the local population. Okay. Now let's come to the classification of the industries. Now, one, when they are classified on the basis of raw material. There are different ways of classifying it. First, on the basis of raw material. One, you divide them on the basis of raw material on base of agro-based industries. Now, agro-based industries are those which utilize agricultural products. Okay, basic. Mineral-based industries using raw materials obtained from mines, what I mentioned right now, such as coal, iron ore and bauxite. There is a lot of bauxite mining which takes place in Andhra Pradesh, in southern part of Andhra Pradesh, in the Rayalaseema region. Forest based industries which use wood for timber, wood pulp, paper, etc. This happens more in the Khammam, Bhadrachalam area of Telangana. The forest based industries. So it depends on where what you have. Agro based, mineral based and forest based industries. Second, on the basis of the nature of the product. Now on the basis of the nature of the products, industries can be divided into heavy industries, which are generally the iron and steel industry, which use heavy and bulky raw material like iron ore and coal, and manufacture heavy products like steel, machinery, etc. And we will be reading about the iron and steel plants later on in this particular chapter. Then there are there's the light industries which produce materials like pharmaceuticals, chemicals and drugs. Like Hyderabad is a major pharma center. Visakhapatnam has a pharma city. There are many places which kind of specialize that you will do stuff like that, where you can, if one industry comes, so there are a whole lot of comes, so that the whole zone becomes known as a pharma center. Okay. Third classification is on the basis of size and investment. One is the large scale industries which require a large investment of capital, that is money. They employ a large number of workers, and production too is on a large scale, which are essentially the iron and steel industries, okay, which is really mammoth and giant sized. Then we come to the medium sized industries where the investment comparatively is less. They employ also lesser workers, and the goods produced are also smaller. Now this could be the small scale, it could be again say a company which manufactures soaps on a large scale, but it will still not be in the size of a large scale industry. Then there are the small scale industry which have a small capital base, they employ less labor and it's more widespread. Now usually the medium and small scale industries provide what I told you the ancillary products for the large scale industries. In India, about 92%, now this statistic may change because depending on when this statistic was taken from, so you don't have to bother too much about the statistic, but I may just tell you a bulk of the factories are in the small and the medium scale sectors. You know, for instance, a lot of cottage industries there. For instance, the entire fireworks industry in Shivakasi in southern Tamil Nadu is essentially a cottage and a small scale industry which employs labor, but it's not an organized kind of an industry in that sense. Okay, only 8% of the total are in the large scale sector. So the large scale sector are less, but they are the big players in that sense because the investment is huge. The others are all in the medium and the small scale sector, which kind of service the needs of the large scale industry. Okay, now the fourth way to classify the industry is on the basis of management. Okay. We have seen on the nature of basis of products, on the basis of raw material and on the basis of investment and size. The fourth is also on the basis of management. One is the public sector, second is the private sector, third is a joint sector, and fourth is the cooperative sector. Okay, we will go through it one by one. Now the public sector is essentially owned and controlled by the central government or by any of the state governments. Okay. Now they will include what? Things like Indian Railways, which is essentially owned by the central government, right? There will be many road transport services, those involved in power, in irrigation facilities, like for instance the rural electrification company, things like HUDCO, which is the housing development company. You know, these are all in the central government sector. Things like, for instance, a Singarini coal race, which is in Telangana, and it's the Telangana government has a stake. So there will be public sector companies which will be owned either by the central government or by individual state governments. Then there will be companies which will be involved in post and telegraph, heavy and light engineering works, aircraft, shipbuilding. There are a whole lot of them in Visakhapatnam on the Andhra coast, which are in the public sector. In fact, Visakhapatnam is referred to as a PSU city, public sector unit city, and it says only about 6% of the total number of factories belong in the public sector, and these include ONGC, NTPC, BHEL, Bharat Heavy Engineering Limited, SAIL, Steel Authority of India Limited. Now these are all the NTC, the National Textile Corporation. These are all companies which are there in the public sector, and these are also large units. Second is what we come to the private sector, and this is really where the bulk of the management is, because India, after it opened up in 1992, but even before that there were private companies available, but especially after liberalization the number of private companies obviously increased in the country. Now these are owned and managed by private individuals, which could be like Reliance Industries, the Tatas, Wipro, you know, a whole host of them, Tata Consultancy Services, the software firm Infosys. So there are a whole lot of them which are in the private sector. They also could include cotton and textile mills, chemicals, small engineering concerns, and of the number of factories, about 92%, because only 8% of them are in the public sector, majority of them are in the private sector. As I mentioned, the names like the Tata Group, Reliance, Infosys, etc. Then there is a third category, which is the joint sector owned. Now where both the government and the private individuals come and share equity in order to float an enterprise, right? But the day-to-day management, depending on the equity, largely could be in private hands, but the central government also has a large say in how the company will be run. One of them is the Mahanagar Telephone Nigam Limited, MTNL. Cooperative sector units is the fourth kind of industry which we classified on the basis of management. Now, these are owned and run cooperatively by a group of people who usually produce the raw materials, the most famous of them being Amul, which produces milk as part of a cooperative movement in Anand, Gujarat. In fact, a movie called Manthan was also made on this particular cooperative movement, which was heralded by Dr. Varghese Kurian at that point in time. The Amul, which is there in Anand, is one of the largest and the most popular of the cooperative sector industry in India. So that is as far as the first part of this chapter, mineral based industries, is concerned, where we have seen the basis of industry and on the basis the different ways in which industries are classified in India. So you need to have an understanding of this. Thereafter, when you read it, it will make it more easy, and I hope with the number of examples that I have given for you so far, it would have made it much more interesting definitely, and also easy for you to understand. See you in part 2 of this chapter. Thank you very much for watching.